We are hearing from our international relations correspondent that the coup in Guinea-Bissau has been foiled by government forces. And when coups occur, we hear this all the time. In Ghana, we had our own experience in 1979 when, first of all, in May 15th, when the coup was successfully foiled in 79. Rawlings returned in 81, in 1983, the Ali Dujiwa. So coups come, they are foiled, they come. We have to wait a bit and see what the situation is. But welcome, Alhassan Bello. How have you been?
Fine.
What's the latest from Guinea-Bissau?
Just not long ago, on the president's Facebook handle, pictures were released of him being in the presidential palace. The coup appeared to have been foiled. But then what is not really clear is whether there was an involvement of ECOWAS forces. You know, Guinea-Bissau, unlike other Francophone countries, has never been stable. It had not less than 19 coups. And there's this... 19
coups in their history, since independence.
Yes, and they gained just around 74 actually.
Oh, I see.
So from 74 to now, about 19 coups.
Okay. So
somewhere around 2019, there was a similar situation. ECOWAS had to deploy some troops. But there was an agreement around 2020 that by December, the troops should have been withdrawn in face value. So I don't really know whether they are still there as part of the contingent.
Okay, so there was a stable ECOWAS force inside Guinea-Bissau?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was supposed, because of the history of instability in Guinea. The force
so ECOWAS retained the force there. That's interesting.
And if you look
Ghana was part of it, do you know?
I think Nigeria is the lead power. And then I'm not sure if Ghana is as a contingent.
Okay.
But it could be the ECOWAS forces were there, because unlike the previous coup in Burkina Faso, we saw a swift release of communique by ECOWAS, warning the coup plotters or the attempted coup plotters to be careful, because they will be held responsible for the life of the president and the rest. So the situation is still not clear, though.
Okay, so your suspicion is that ECOWAS didn't issue a statement on Guinea-Bissau publicly because they may have instructed their force there to foil it. That's your suspicion?
I think, yeah, probably they decided to release it after being sure that the coup has been foiled.
But what was the nature of the coup? Was there a broadcast by the rebels that they have taken over the country? Was there something like that?
There was just an attempt to hijack the presidential palace. So there was exchange of fire.
So just about the presidential palace. So they attempted to sort of take hold of the president.
Yeah.
And the president escaped? Is that what happened at the weekend?
Based on the image that he released, pictures were shown with him and senior army commanders in the palace. And interestingly, the president is also a former army general.
Oh, the president is a former soldier. Is he a democratically elected president?
Yeah, elected democratically.
Was that their first election, Guinea-Bissau?
No.
They've had several elections.
Okay. But one of the reasons for instability in Guinea is actually the structure of government itself. They have these semi-presidential systems where you have a president and a prime minister sharing power.
But so that's the bicephalous executive.
Yeah.
So a president is elected and he appoints a prime minister. That's like the French system.
Yeah. But then there's always this tension between the president and the prime minister, because there could be a possibility where the president the prime minister come from an opposition party different from that of the president. But in the French system, they have this system we call cohabitation, when you have two different parties in governance. And it is clearly demarcated that in such a situation, the president deals with foreign policy and defense, whilst the prime minister deals with domestic policy and economy. But in the Guinea-Bissau cases, there's always this overlap and this competition for influence and power.
But doesn't the president have the appointive powers over the prime minister? Is he not the one who appoints the prime minister?
It depends on the dominance of the political forces within the parliament.
But is the president elected?
He's elected.
By universal adult suffrage, popular sovereignty. Yeah. And the prime minister is elected too?
He comes from parliament. So the party with the largest seat in parliament
is appointed. Okay, so the president is limited to, like the Queen in England, appointing the leader of the party with majority in parliament as the prime minister.
In their case, he has some executive powers.
The prime minister?
Yeah. Because even in the
Yes, once he's appointed, you have executive powers.
But
I'm saying that the president is limited to who he can appoint based on the results of the parliamentary election.
Based on the result, he has to appoint a prime minister based on the recommendation of parliament. But in areas of defense and security, he has absolute powers over that.
No, I understand that. But in terms of appointing the prime minister, he's limited to...
Yeah, he's limited.
He's very limited. Yeah. So that the appointment of the prime minister is predictable.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone knows after the results of the election that this will be the prime minister. Yeah. That's what the situation they have. So that is what sometimes brings the tension.
But sometimes it also has to do with rivalry within the ruling party itself. Because the recent one that caused instability in 2019 was actually a personality clash within the ruling party itself. So sometimes this also affects...
Okay, so let's hold on Guinea-Bissau. That's kind of a 50-50 good story if they have been... And you said the president was photographed with military generals?
Yeah, within
So who are those who did the coup? They were not the military generals?
Well, nothing has been said about them so far.
Oh, I see, okay.
But if we look at the event, it could be an attempt by junior officers, because if you look at Mali, Guinea.
That's a trend. It's junior officers who are doing these
around
things.
Lieutenant Colonel, Colonels.
Lieutenant Colonel is not a junior officer. Festus Abuaji, who we are talking about tonight, is a Lieutenant
He's
Colonel.
not a general.
He's not a general, but Lieutenant Colonel is a commander of the battalion. That's not junior. Junior is lieutenant and captain, maybe. Even captain, yes, but you know.
But still.
Lieutenant is a platoon commander. Captain is a officer commanding a company.
Who is supposed to be in the realm of the generalship itself?
The general starts from brigadier general. That is those who command 3 battalions. So 3 battalions put together is 1 brigade. And the one who commands that usually is a general. That's where the general ranks begin.
But I know it takes a lot of courage for someone below the general rank to make an attempt to capture.
Champon did a coup at the general rank. So anyway, let's get to Burkina Faso. You have to follow this. And I was telling you that let's get the connection about the Burkina Faso football match, which brought victory to Burkina Faso, an unexpected victory against a powerhouse like Tunisia in the circumstance of a coup d'etat in Burkina that we're trying to deal with. How did they receive it?
There was a euphoria in the capital, a lot of jubilation.
So this photograph we're seeing is from after the game?
After the game.
So people poured out onto the streets?
Yeah, a lot of people.
Do they have curfew over there because of the coup?
No, initially there was a curfew. But then having realized that the coup itself was popular, they see no need for it. They only gave a warning to the members of the former government not to travel outside the country.
Oh, I see. So they kept them hostage?
I think some of them are in detention. For the president, we've been told he's in good condition due to the visit of ECOWAS led by our foreign minister. So we are now assured of his safety. But there's been nothing said about the other ministers. They've been tight-lipped about that. I don't know if it's part of the bargaining.
Okay, so on the night of the football victory, this is a photograph that you picked up. Do you have any other more?
No.
Okay, so on the night of the football victory, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Did the coup people address the nation around the football victory?
I think Henry actually spoke the following day.
Who's Henry?
The coup plotter, the leader of the military junta. He gave a speech. That was his first speech. After the
first speech since the coup.
Since the coup, even the coup wasn't announced by himself. The coup was announced by one of the officers of the armed forces.
And he was proclaimed the leader.
The leader.
Okay.
So it was just after the.
That's the first time he spoke to the nation.
To the nation.
Did he make reference to the soccer game?
Not really, but he only spoke about spoke about general policy. As the coup plotters will come, this is the reason we overthrew the government. You are assured of your safety.
So this is the time that he's now telling the people why they did the coup.
That was actually his first speech itself.
He didn't make any reference to the football game?
No.
Okay. Burkina are playing again tomorrow, I think. Awal will be telling us that. And we'll see how they will be welcomed back to their country. Because even if they lose tomorrow, beating Tunisia and getting to the semi-final is a big story for Burkina Faso.
I think for the past 5 encounters, they've crossed
quarter-final. Yeah, but beating Tunisia was significant. That's why you have this kind of photographs. So do you think that the football matter will sort of have a certain positive light for the coup makers in terms of omen? Because we are Africans and we believe in culture and all of that.
I think it allowed them to deflect possible pressure.
The pressure of handover. Yeah. The pressure on them to hand over.
Yeah. It also
but they've never had that pressure from their own citizens. They've had that pressure from ECOWAS.
No, you see, the pressure became from ECOWAS. But then, mind you, the ousted government still has his couple of supporters around. And there will still be a lot of agitation here and there. But this allowed them to just kind of build national unity and then avoid. And if you look at the concession they gave to ECOWAS by restoring the constitution, it's just a way of consolidating.
Is it Mali who has restored the constitution? Or is it Burkina?
No, Burkina.
They have restored the constitution. Yeah. I don't understand that.
Immediately after the coup, the constitution was suspended, just like it happened in most schools. But a major departure from the previous coup we've seen in Guinea and Mali was that immediately, I think, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, that they announced the restoration of the constitution. And if you look at the name of...
But what does that mean? I don't get it.
So it means now that the constitution is...
But the provisions of the constitution have been grossly violated by them, by the fact of overthrowing the president without an election.
I think they are trying to take a cue from Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe? What happened in Zimbabwe?
You know, when Mugabe was actually overthrown de facto.
Yes.
But the military had to take the demand to parliament for him to be impeached.
Yes.
Because he refused to resign.
So they used the constitutional impeachment method
to legitimize
the exit of Mugabe. That's correct. You can do that. But what would you done in Burkina Faso?
No, but that itself does not deny the fact that a coup d'etat is illegal. It's an illegal...
Well, but you can't call the Zimbabwe one a coup d'etat. It was the president being forced to leave. Something like that.
It was a coup d'etat in everything but leave.
Well, so in terms of the law, you will not be able to sue Mnangagwa, who became the leader, and his gang for orchestrating the removal of Robert Mugabe. because they kept the constitution.
Yeah.
So they changed the president using the constitutional process by getting parliament to impeach Robert Mugabe.
So what if you had refused to resign?
Well, impeachment is by force. They don't require your resignation. So what they have done in Burkina Faso must be understood. The constitution says that there's a president, there's a parliament and all that.
Yeah.
All of these institutions have been proclaimed to have been overthrown.
Yeah.
And yet they say they have restored the constitution. It's totally incongruous.
That is the ambiguity within their decision. But then let's look at it from the domestic perspective and the foreign policy perspective. Mm-hmm. Domestic-wise, for those who will be afraid of their leadership, will not be kind of assured that, there's this attempt by coup plotters anytime they come to power to use military court to try their opponent. But in this case, if the constitution is restored, at least you are assured that whatever happens, the normal...
So what happens to the legislature? Have they also been restored?
No. The institutions are not restored, but the constitution itself. So for example, if you are arrested, you are assured that your right stipulated under the constitution will be respected. The right of innocence, the presumption of innocence, the right to have a lawyer, all those rights. But if had it not been that the constitution has been restored, they will just be by decree. And such decrees can be very draconian in nature. Oh,
okay, I get it. So it's a kind of middle way.
That is on the domestic angle. It also eases the fear among the members or supporters of the previous regime. So it's a way of consolidating them.
What has been ECOWAS's reaction to this restoration of the constitution? Has ECOWAS said anything?
Well, like as the usual response we expected, the same thing happened. It was Burkina Faso was suspended, not just by ECOWAS, by AU itself, and then there's a threat of sanction. So this is also on the foreign policy angle. This is an attempt to also get ECOWAS to the board so they can judge.
Okay.
Because on one hand, you have taken over the government illegally, on your own justification that there was insecurity and failure of the government to do certain things. But you've also restored the constitution, which itself cannot bring us back to dialogue. So we can begin to look at, would it be a transition under
So who's president?
Lieutenant Colonel Henry Damiba.
President under the constitution? Unelected?
Unelected.
Okay. Let's move to Mali. What's the latest in Mali?
Now, the Malian issue, there was a statement issued by the French foreign policy, foreign minister. It was a reaction to a decision taken by Mali. You see, one of the things that is very unique in Mali is that the fight against the jihadists is fought on a multi-layered basis, different competing operations. We have the French-led Operation Barkhane. We have a contingent of the G5 Sahel group, which comprises of Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso,
Niger,
Mauritania, and Niger, who are part of that operation. You also have Niger being part of the multinational joint task force, assisting Nigeria to fight against Boko Haram. Within Mali itself, also you have Operation Takuba, which is a European Union-led mission. So there are also these competing operations, and that also affects the effectiveness of the response towards the jihadists. One of the decisions Mali took was to ask the Danish government to withdraw its troops, which was part of the European Union mission.
Ask the French government to withdraw its troops?
No, the Danish government.
Danish
government.
Okay.
To withdraw its troops, which were part of the Operation Takuba, which is a European Union-led mission. But the French minister, in reaction to that, called the Malian military government to be illegitimate, out of control, and acting irresponsibly. And that angered the Malian military government. So in reaction, they asked the ambassador, Joël Meyers, to leave within 72 hours.
Has he left?
What?
Are we within the 72 hours?
Yeah, we are within the 72 hours, so I don't know.
So he's still there?
Yeah.
Will he leave? Will he comply?
Yeah, I can't tell, but he has no choice if 72 hours expires. And then another thing, it looks like the European Union are now trying to share in solidarity with the French. The German government also issued a statement condemning the Malian government. But then one thing which is very peculiar is that in as much as the coup situation is very irritating on the surface value, but there's a deep-seated anti-French sentiment within these countries. And that is what I call a blessing in disguise for Anglophone ECOWAS if you are smart. We always complain about the French dominance.
But that goes back to the colonial policy of association.
And this is the blessing aspect of it. There's a clear agitation and anti-French sentiment in these countries. In as much as the coups are wrong, it is the time for Anglophone ECOWAS to take a lead. Sit down with the coup plotters, have a practical dialogue, look at the inherent situation that causes the problem.
Now, but the France-Afrique policy It's not unpopular in Côte d'Ivoire. It's not unpopular in Senegal. It's not unpopular in Paul Biya's Cameroon. So you can make a statement that across West Africa, the France-Afrique, which is what they call it, is unpopular. It's unpopular in Guinea-Bissau. Yes, it's been a reaction from the coup in Burkina and Mali and Niger. Most of these are contested sovereignties, aren't they? But if you look at the sovereignties that are by and large stable, you can give them over 50% sovereignty position, like La Côte d'Ivoire, like even Lomé, Togo, like Senegal. You will see that the France-Afrique policy is not altogether being dethroned in these stable countries.
Let's look at these countries you've just mentioned in isolation.
Yes.
Let's take the Ivorian situation. Why was Gbagbo ousted?
Gbagbo was ousted because he began this agitation against the French, particularly with the bank, the French central bank, and commodities control by the French finance ministry that controlled the commodities as part of the France-Afrique relationship, controlled their cocoa, coffee, and all of that. That was Gbagbo's position. But Ouattara comes in and is able to manage it in such a way that whilst he is doing cocoa with Ghana, not France, the French involvement in Côte d'Ivoire is still there.
Well, I see Ouattara to be a puppet of France. When we intend to go to unveil the ECHO, who went to France and hijacked the whole process?
You're talking about the currency, the West African currency we're talking about.
And don't forget, mind you, Ivory Coast has always been the center of gravity of French
But since Ouattara became president, the Ivorian economy has been growing. It's been growing.
If you go
At this time, it's probably doing better than Ghana. Its debt to GBC ratio post-COVID is probably better than Ghana. Well, they didn't spend as much as Ghana spent on COVID. But the Ivorian economy is one that people are applauding, coming out of civil war.
So that is when we look at it on statistics. So if you go deep down, what is the impact of those statistics on the ground? African economies have always been good on paper. GDPs, fantabulous, very beautiful GDPs.
Not all the time. Not all the time.
Nice stories here and there. But the fact we have one persistent problem since independence: unemployment, poverty, and that is part of the contributing factor of insecurity in the Sahel. Let's look at Paul Biya's Cameroon. Even though Cameroon is not a West African country, he has a problem with the Anglophone side of his country.
Yes, he does. So the point you're making is that the anti-French sentiment runs through. That's the point I'm challenging. That it doesn't run through Francophone Africa. The anti-French sentiment, it doesn't seem to run across. It's not in Senegal. It's not in La Côte d'Ivoire. It's not in Lomé.
The same reason why Gbagbo was taken to Hague is the same reason why Thomas Sankara was eliminated. And don't forget, the killing of Thomas Sankara was carried out in collaboration with Houphouët-Boigny. So there's this fear that if one country is able to break away from that arrangement, it will spread across. So the French are very, suspicious of one country taking a leap out. Let's look at that.
How do you see it panning out over the next 2.5 years? The French influence in West Africa, given now that the European Union is backing France to help France maintain its influence, as it were, over these countries. How do you see it? Because this is might and force talking.
Yeah. Well, if West African leaders are smart enough, we can chip away French influence in certain zones, especially in these three countries having the coup d'etat situation now. But I'm not really sure if the Burkinabe coup is anti-French. There's a rising anti-French sentiment among the population. But if you look at the unit where Henry Damiba is from, it's from a dissolved unit that was loyal to Blaise Compaoré. And we know Blaise Compaoré was part of the team that assassinated, Thomas Sankara. And then mind you, there's this belief that perhaps the coup was meant to protect Compaoré because he was about to be on trial in absentia.
In Burkina.
Yeah, in Burkina. For the murder of Thomas Sankara.
Yes, I hear that trial has been cancelled. It's been called off, not cancelled, by the family because of the instability.
And
so the trial was alleging that Blaise Compaoré had been responsible for the murder of Thomas Sankara, isn't it?
Yeah, and then evidence were turning out that he actually
masterminded
it in collaboration with Houphouët-Boigny. And there's a reason to believe that is a fact, because he's been living in exile in Ivory Coast.
Okay.
The same Ivory Coast that was believed to be involved in the coup.
But Houphouët is no longer in charge of Ivory Coast. Houphouët died.
But is there a difference?
Ouattara is a protege of Houphouët, yes, that's correct.
There's no difference.
Yeah. A little bit of difference, but yes.
Ouattara himself is believed to be of Burkina Faso ancestry.
Absolutely.
And that affected his...
Yes.
But then the question is, if France is not involved, if there's no growing anti-French sentiment, what was Gbagbo's side? The only people bundled and arrested to Hague.
But the thing you're refusing to watch about Gbagbo, and I had been to Ivory Coast to interview Gbagbo with some Ghanaian journalists in the heat of the crisis. Gbagbo appeared to have lost an election and he was resisting the defeat. That's really what happened.
But was he resisting the defeat unconstitutionally or using constitutional means? The law says goes to the Constitutional Court.
The Constitutional Court had declared Ouattara as the winner.
No, the EC.
Yes, the Electoral Commission, yes.
Declared
Ouattara as the winner. But who declares the results? Is it the Constitutional Court or is it the EC?
You know, after the EC, the Constitutional Court has a final say. So he disagreed with what the EC has stated. He took that decision to the Constitutional Court. He's working within the remit of the law. Why was there this haste to just get the man out? Okay, we took him out. Mind you, it was a civil war situation, right?
Yeah.
War crimes were committed by both sides. But did we see any Ouattara faction or Ouattara ally bundled to Hague? And now, after spending so many years in Hague, have they been able to produce evidence?
But Ouattara has opened arms for Gbagbo, who's back in the country. In fact, Gbagbo was here for the Kojochi Kata funeral. Anyway.
The aim has been achieved. You need to just douse the man's influence. And by taking him outside the country for about 5 years or so.
Don't you think that Francophone countries, the difference in what they are lacking between them and Africa, and I wrote something on the security, the role of security sector governance in the political outcomes of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. I'll give you that works for you to look at it. And I was comparing the growth of institutions in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, growth of political institutions, and the research indicated that Ghana's survival with democracy has been the growth of our institutions from 1992. Even though the opposition didn't go to parliament, there was a deliberate effort in Ghana, assisted by the international community, to grow our institutions, parliament, Shraj, the presidency, the media, and all of that. That's a difference that you find in Anglophone Ghana, Nigeria, and the Francophone don't have that. When I went to Cote d'Ivoire to interview Laurent Gbagbo in the heat of the crisis, he was still in the presidential palace, and we went there to interview him. At that time, Ivory Coast didn't have a single other television station. The only television station was a state broadcaster. Radio was one. They didn't have independent newspapers. All of us were totally shocked. This was 2010 or 2011. They didn't have that. So should we not, as a civil society, be thinking of building the institutions in these Francophone African countries? I'm asking you that question because I'll be addressing it in the editorial about coup d'etats.
That's why I was saying that if ECOWAS is smart enough, the coup has happened, let's accept it as a necessary evil. What is the way forward? Because we've seen that in the Mali situation, the military alone cannot address the problem. Because the military is part of the problem.
Are you one of those who thinks France should just take its hands off?
Of course.
Oh, you think so?
I've always taken a Pan-African stand on issues like this.
That stand may not be a Pan-African stand. It is a stand, but I don't know why you call it Pan-African. Should America take its hands off?
Have they gotten any business here?
Well, if France goes, should America come? Now you were telling me Russia is coming in. That's another European power.
I don't have a problem with they coming in. But when you come in, does your interest dominate ours? Or it's mutual benefit? It
should be mutual. Tony Blair addressed the Ghanaian parliament and said aid instead of trade instead of aid. So it's mutual. It's a global world. You can't live in isolation.
Let's look at
even America, Japan cannot live in, even China cannot live in isolation. So you are one of those who are hard-lined, quote and unquote, intellectual jihadists who think that France should take its hands off. I don't quite agree with that.
I rather prefer a restructuring of the arrangement in such a way that. So let's ask a simple question.
Yeah.
What is this so-called benefit of colonial rule that the Francophone countries still owe a debt to pay to France?
Language. Colonial rule gave us a single language. That's what the question I'm coming to. I understand Mali is now saying that they will not even speak French anymore.
So should we also be paying the British for making us speak English?
No, we don't pay them.
Should we also be saving our money in the British Central Bank?
No, we don't have that problem.
So why should the French people have it?
No, they should stop that. Everyone agrees
that
the centralization of their monetary policy in Paris is wrong. And Gbagbo talked about that. Ouattara agrees with that. The centralization of Francophone monetary policy in Paris is absolutely wrong.
If you can remember, the Italian Foreign Minister, Luigi Di Maio, once criticized France over that decision.
Yes.
And what do you call it? Macron was agitated.
Yes.
This is theft.
Well,
let's call it.
I see how you're agitated, but they pay back something to the colonies. They do. That's why they used to call Abidjan Le Petit Paris, because it was a beautiful place, much more beautiful than Accra, than Lagos. Now we have overtaken them. Accra is more beautiful. Lagos probably comes after Accra. But that's the reason. So they took the money and they managed the money in such a way that they brought back development. They brought companies. The Peugeot, French automobile maker Peugeot, has been in Ivory Coast from the 1960s. We didn't have an automobile maker. So yes, there's some benefits on it. But I agree that within the context of sovereignty, it doesn't make sense to say that 7, 8, 9, 15 countries under France-Afrique will have their monetary policy based in Paris and determined by Paris. That, I think, must end.
This is political money laundering, where I save my money in your country, you benefit from it.
And I pay your civil servants.
Not just
I always pay them.
You grant me loan based on my money in your bank with interest.
As a security. The money in your money in my bank is a security.
This is political money laundering. This is theft.
Let's talk about Mali. Mali say they don't want the French language anymore. Do they want to speak English?
No, they want to speak one of their local languages, Bambara. That's why I said
they want to speak Bambara to the rest of the world. Are they serious?
No, I think that would be the... Wow.
You're looking for the Mali leader?
No, there's this. Okay, it's not here.
It's not here, okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave the photograph of Rawlings and them so you can tell us about it.
This is what I was looking for.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you look at the ethnic makeup of the country, the Bambara constitute 33%. But then
let's get it right. Mali have announced that they don't want French and they want Bambara to be the language of Mali.
Official language.
Official language of Mali. To relate to ECOWAS, to relate to the United Nations, to relate to everywhere. African Union. They are going to use Bambara. Are they crazy?
That's what I'm saying, that the military itself is also... This is just what I call unavoidable.
How did they put that? How was the announcement made? That, ladies and gentlemen, écoutez, bientôt. We will not speak French anymore.
What it also means is that overnight you are turning a lot of people into illiterates.
Because they can't speak Bambara?
No, there's difference between being able to speak a language and being able to write and read that language.
But what is the rationale? Okay, so this is the distribution of the languages in Mali.
Groups in Mali.
Can you put this on the TV so people can see it? No, not here. They'll put it on the TV.
Let
me see. Yes, they have it on the TV now. Okay, yes. So 33% Bambara. That's the first one. Yeah. Fula is 13%. Yeah. And then the Sonike is 9.6%. Senufo, Bawa, is that what it's called? 9.6%. Yeah. These languages are from what? Is it Fulani? Is it...
This is Fulani, the Fula.
Fula is Fulani, okay. And the Bambara is what?
I think that's one of the largest. That's the largest, I think.
So is it Awusa?
No. It's one of the languages over there.
Is it an old language? Is it the Ghana Empire Mansa Musa time language?
No, Mansa Musa time language I think falls under the Mandinka.
I can see Songhai here.
Yeah, Songhai. So this
is
Malinke.
Dogon, is it like our Dagbon?
No. This will probably be the Mansa Musa language, Malinke. Yeah, Malinke.
Okay, so they want the people to speak Bambara. How are they going to implement that?
I think about 80% of the population understand Bambara. They speak Bambara. But now there's a difference between being able to speak a language and being able to read and write a language.
Yeah, but how are they going to? Are they going to relate to the rest of the world in Bambara?
That's the issue. Even Ethiopia, for example, that speaks Amhara.
Yes.
As its ethnic national language.
Yeah, but they speak English.
They still learn English.
No, English is their communication language with the rest of the world.
So the question is, but I think Mali has another advantage. It can decide to use Arabic.
Yes, Arabic is okay. It's accepted.
Because, in the era of the...
Arabic is accepted. It's a UN language.
In the period of the old Mali Empire, what do you call it, the Songhai Empire, because of the influence of Islam, and the prominence of Timbuktu as a center of learning.
Center of learning, yeah, correct.
Arabic should be where they should be going. So Arabic could be a better replacement for Bambara.
Absolutely.
But then another problem here is that, the last week I spoke about the historic division between the North and the South. Bambara appears to be one of the languages of the South. So the question is, how would the Northerners still relate? It still goes to...
Are the coup plotters mostly from the South?
Yeah, because of the dominance of the Southerners over state institutions. That's always been resented by the Northerners in Mali. So most of the coup plotters are from the South. That's why, you see, for example, what led to the coup itself was the agitation for what you call it, security. But what is security? What the people understand as security differs from the North. To a Southerner, security means imposing state authority over the entire landmass of Mali. But to a Northerner, what the Southerner means as security is reimposing that old oppressive system he has fought against.
Oh, I see. That's complicated.
That is why ECOWAS must go down there. Instead of issuing fiat and declarations here and there, and instructions here and there, at least let's accept the necessary evil has happened. Now, how do we go forward to ensure that we don't have a repetition of the problem? Because we had 2 coups within 1 year in 2020. It tells you that perhaps the first approach wasn't the best.
I think it's the failure of institutions. And there I sort of agree with you. You have to blame the foreign policy of Paris, which has run these states as another wallet, as another purse, instead of looking at the institutions and developing the institutions of states.
Another thing also not looking. When the Anglophone countries were being democratized, there was this deliberate policy of, military reform. There was this attempt to build cordial civil military relationship. But in the French instance, these things are absent.
but back to the point against you. This military reform you talk about was led largely by America. So in Ghana, for instance, even our military ranks, the way it looks, is now looking like America instead of Britain. So we now say Brigadier General, which is an American terminology. British don't say Brigadier General, they say Brigadier. So we used to say Brigadier, now we say Brigadier General. And our institutions, we talk of Southern Command, which was number 1 Brigade, which is what the British left us with. The Americans do the geographic thing, Northern Command, Southern Command, Eastern Command. So that's American influence. Will you call that an influence of imperialists? Because it's American influence that has reshaped our military. Our civil military relations has been largely shaped by America since 1994.
My stance on that is not, I don't believe in ideological dogmatism. I believe in ideological pragmatism. When we have to talk, when our interests collide, let's judge.
But one is stronger than the other until we become as strong.
Well, it's very simple. You can either make a Saudi Arabia out of me or you make an Iran out of me, hostility or friendship. But you can't point.
I like that militant position. You can either make a Saudi Arabia out of me, or you make an Iran out of me.
You don't point a gun at me and expect me to talk.
Alhassan Bello is our international relations correspondent. Very clever man. Remind me, I'll give you that work that I talked about, the role of security sector governance in the political outcomes of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Yes, you can quickly do something.
These things. I was talking about the rolling Sankara.
Yes. Let's finalize that.
And I deliberately brought this quotation.
Yes, Sankara's quotation. What did he say?
A soldier without political or ideological training is a potential criminal.
What did he mean by that?
You know, he was a soldier. But when he came to power, his goal was to reform the country. And one lasting legacy he has left intact is the name of the country itself.
Burkina Faso, yes. It used to be called Upper Volta, English name. Yeah. He changed it to French. In that context, was he not fomenting France-Afrique? He changed the name of the country from Upper Volta, which is an English name, to Burkina Faso, which is a French name.
No, the Burkina Faso came from the local language.
It's not French?
No, it's not French.
Which local language?
I think, is it the Mosi?
So what does it mean?
Land of the upright people, upright man.
Oh, I see. La Côte d'Ivoire is French, so that's different. Yeah. Okay.
And
so you're still on Sankara.
Yeah. And what he's saying is that, you see, there's this belief that the military is, there's this, what they call, I don't know how they call it, military neutrality, where they expect the military to be neutral outside politics.
Yes.
But in his own argument, so long as a soldier is part of the population,
he's part of the
whatever affects the population affects him.
Yes.
But instead of joining the oppressive regime, soldiers have moral duty to side with the people. So when the government becomes oppressive, they must resist it and side with the people.
Tonight we're going to zero in that on research we have done. That shows that the legitimate way, the only legitimate way historically for soldiers to come in is when the political class have closed the door on a possible change of government through the ballot box. When the political class have closed that door, it is only then that there is legitimacy for the military to come. Military don't come in on economic hardships in the way that people talk about it. But we'll talk about, you hear that when we do the editorial. I would like to hear your views.
But then this your stance will have legitimized the Guinean coup, because Conde was trying to massage the constitution.
Well, yes, even in the 1966 coup in Ghana, which is the big debate between the two main political parties, the argument being made is that Dr. Nkrumah had blocked all ways of changing the political authority, and therefore you can have a coup. And then this is one of what's this Rawlings' quotation? What did he say?
If the people are crushed by their own elites, it is up to the army to give the people...
crushed by their own elites should be limited to closing the door on constitutional
But this
change.
is also a quotation of Doumbouya when he came to office.
Oh, I see. He quoted Rawlings. Okay.
To legitimize his coup.
I think what we can get from Rawlings, and that's a point you made, and why they are looking at it, that whilst he did a coup, in his transition to democracy, he allowed the growth of political institutions. And tonight we'll be showing the J.H. Mensah speech again, which was given when Rawlings was president. When Rawlings was president, he allowed the growth of the institutions. And in Ghana, we have been fortunate to have a very famous Supreme Court. Today, again, the Supreme Court have conducted themselves in a way that means that our democracy is working. I'll be talking about it.
And that's why I said there's a Rawlings-Sankara influence. But the reason why they are using Rawlings and not Sankara, despite the fact that they are from Francophone countries, is that, you see, Sankara died in office.
He was killed, yes.
Yeah, he couldn't finish his project. But in the case, this was they were very close allies.
They were, yes.
And they almost came to power within the same period, having the same situation.
Yeah. And they were both backed by Fidel Castro as well.
There's a reason why, you know, when the Malian junta came to Ghana after the ECOWAS meeting, they visited Rawlings, and there was this belief that they said they came to him for advice. So then we should also say, why were they choosing to approach Rawlings and not using Sankara's memory? It's very simple. Once Sankara died long ago, you couldn't transition the country. If I come to power with the same situation, promising to transition the country into democracy, Rawlings being alive, one, at that time kind of give me some credit. And also, since he was able to transition the country into democracy, any attachment to his personality or his ideas tend to one way or the other.
But you still have to give that to Rawlings. I think across Africa, he's been one of the leaders whose transition has been successful. And especially, I think, because he allowed the growth of the institute. Well, I don't know whether he allowed it or was forced upon him, but the growth of institutions occurred under Rawlings. So if you look around Africa, Mobutu Sese Seko tried to do that, it didn't work. Colonel Gaddafi tried to do that, it didn't work. Emperor Bokassa tried to do that, it didn't work. Sani Abacha tried to do that, it was a total explosion, and he died. He got killed in the process. So if you look at military rulers who have transitioned themselves in Africa, Rawlings will be the one who has been successful at it. You can talk about Fidel Castro elsewhere. We don't know whether Castro
I think Rawlings is even more. No, Castro came to power through a civil war, rather.
Well, yes, but he was a military guy who tried to transition himself into get a constitution, something like that. But Rawlings is the one who bet a constitution, allowed the institutions of state, did 2 terms, his party lost an election, went to opposition. He became an active member of the opposition by criticizing the government and talking, and he was an active member until his death. So you really have to give that to Rawlings. But in Africa, he's been the only one who has been able to do the transition, and therefore, lessons of how to transition should be left to him. I agree with that, and that's why the soldiers had come to see him. Have you noticed the photograph in Rawlings' office, where he took the photograph with him? That's Nelson Mandela visiting Ghana. That's Rawlings. It's interesting to see why Jair wanted to take the photograph with them in front of his photograph with Nelson Mandela.
He saw himself to be this ground figure.
He did. A colossal figure.
And it looked as if Rawlings is actually even popular outside Ghana than in Ghana.
Especially in those countries where they think that they need a certain spike.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alhassan Bello.